Hiya, welcome to the next episode. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a technical problem with the sound on this video, so you might notice the video is not in sync and it's not even the same words. So what I'm doing here is I'm showing you that last week we made the player move, but you can go straight through the walls. So what we're going to do in this episode is try and fix that so we've got some collision going on with this red solid block that we used last week. So to do that, we're going to have to do some changes to the way we've been calculating the speed and the position at the bottom. So we're going to do some checking if it's collided with that red block. So in the create event, we had this X and Y speed. We're actually now going to use that because we'll need to use that first and then apply it right at the end. So we need to change the speed of the character first, and then we're going to use that to work out where the player is on the next frame and to see if they've collided. So we're applying it directly at the end here, and we don't want to because the player might not be able to move because there might be a wall in the way. So we're going to get the speed, and we're going to use that calculation exactly the same to work out the speed, and we're going to put that in there. But doing it this way, it means that we can actually stop the player from moving before we change that final X coordinate. So we do need to now check for a collision with the wall. So we're going to use an if statement, so code branching, if place meeting, and we're going to need three parts. We're going to need where the player is, so we'll need their X coordinate, so maybe 10, and if they've got a speed of 2, it's going to be 10 plus 2, so the new position would be 12. So we check their new position, so where they are now, plus their speed, that's where they're going to be. The Y doesn't matter because that's just the up and down part, and we don't need that now. And we check where they're going to be, and if it does have a collision, then we'll change the speed to be 0, so this stop. So the X speed plus your current position tells you where you're going to be, and then we'll have the Y coordinate, which is just the up and down, that doesn't matter for this, and then we collide with the object, which is the solid object on our layer, the one where we drew on our solid layer. So we can turn that off, we don't need it to be visible, but it's still there in the game. We'll leave it on just so we can see that it's working properly. So now we've checked the collision, we use the curly braces. So this is a function, so if it's true, if there is a collision, then inside this function we need to set the speed to be 0. So it's much better to do it this way than change the position of the player first and then set the speed, because really you don't want to be moving the player and then moving them back again, because if the game's rendering at a different speed, it might actually draw them in the wrong place, and then the player might look as though they're flashing or jumping. So we like to do all the calculations first, and then at the very end move the player, and then you won't have all these issues. So we're applying the changes to the character right at the end. So that's what I think, that's what I'm just saying there. Yeah, my microphone totally it seemed to change to another microphone, and there's no audio, so I can't even tell what I'm saying. So I fixed it straight after I noticed something was wrong, so it's fine in all the other videos, and I've recorded the whole series now, so it's fine for the rest of them. It's a shame because this is probably the most complicated one, but as long as you get the idea. So now you can see that I can't move past the red area. So if I'm at a position and I move left and it takes some away from my position, I end up in the middle of the block. It detects the collision, it sets my speed to 0, so I can't actually move there anyway. So I never actually get to move, and that's the best way of working on it. So the next thing then is jumping. So we're going to have a variable var jump, and that's going to check and save the keyboard press and to see whether I'm jumping or not. So we're going to use keyboard check pressed VK space, and then that's saved in the variable. So jump will either be true or false. Check the space key. That will either be a true or false. So jump will either be true or it'll be false, or a 1 and a 0, depending on how you want to look at it. So what we need to do now is set the Y speed, and the plus plus, we could write this in a few different ways. We can do plus plus, that means increment the speed by 1 or add 1 to it. We could write it as plus equals 1, that's the same thing. Or we can write it as Y speed plus 1, so it's adding 1 to itself. So it doesn't matter which way you want to write that, they're all the same. I tend to do plus equals 1, and then I can change it if I wanted to. So we're always moving downwards, just like in the real world. Gravity is pulling you down all the time. So if you're stood on the ground, gravity is pulling you down, and the floor is resisting you moving, but you're always moving down. And in a game, the character is moving down every frame. And then if the player collides with the floor, we stop the player moving, just like we did with the left and right motion. So we need to do some checks now. Is the player able to jump? So there are two things a player needs to be able to jump. The first thing is, has the player pressed jump? And is the player on the ground? I don't know if you've ever tried to jump when you're in the air, but you'll find that you can't. You can only jump if you're on the ground. You have to push off something to get the force to counteract the downwards acceleration. So you can't jump while you're in the air. Excuse me. So we're going to now check if you are able to jump. So is the player on the ground? Is one thing we need to know. And we do this the same way we did it before. We use the place meeting. So is the player on the ground? We'll save that in a variable called on the ground. So this will either be true or false. So we'll use the place meeting again, like we did with the wall. This time we just need the X position where the player is. We're not bothered about them moving sideways. We just want to know if they're moving up and down. And we're going to take their vertical position and we're going to move them down a little bit and see if they interact with the floor or the solid block, because the solid block is the floor. So it's the same for sideways and up and down. You could have these separate if you wanted. So you can't, if we move the character down 1 pixel, it will be colliding with the floor. And then if that happened, we would set the speed to 0 so that the player wouldn't move downwards at all. So you move down, check it, and then if you did collide, then you set the Y speed to 0. That's the best way of doing it, so you don't get any strange problems. You never actually move down if you're going to collide. So now we know whether the players press jump, and we also know whether they're on the ground. We can use those two things to actually make the player jump. So we can use an if they're on the ground, which we've just calculated, and if they can jump, which we calculated above, they press the space key. If both of those things are true at the same time, then we can actually change their vertical speed, and we want them to move up, so their speed will be negative in this instance, because positive speed means they're falling down in this game. So we're going to change their speed to negative, and this is going to be a bit of guesswork. So let's put it to -10 and see how that plays in the game. So we set the speed, so they're actually going to move up, and also we're only going to be able to do that once, because as soon as they move up in the air, they won't be on the ground, so they won't be able to do that again, and then gravity will start pulling them down again when we start adding the speed every frame. So the line at the bottom, we're just adding their speed to their Y position. You can see here I've got a bit of an error. So take notice of these. These will happen all the time, and if I mouse over it, it will tell me I am missing a bracket. So if you read those, don't worry about them. They just happen. It tells you what to do in most cases, and you can figure it out. Here I'm counting my brackets. I've got 2 opening brackets, and then I need 2 closing brackets. Those things are there to just help you, and you will make mistakes, but as you keep doing it, it will get easier. Now, when I run it now, what you'll see is I'll probably fall off the screen straight away, really fast. So that's because we're not actually stopping the player moving yet. We're moving them down, but we're not actually stopping them when they hit something. So what we need to do is check if the player is hitting the floor or the ground. And we're going to take into account their speed, because they might be moving faster than 1 pixel at a time. So their X coordinate doesn't matter. We're only checking their downward movement. So we're going to take their position and then we're going to add on how fast they're moving downwards or upwards, doesn't matter, and then check if they hit something solid. So if they hit the head on something, their speed will be 0. And if they're in midair, they won't be able to jump. So then on the next frame, they'll start falling again. So this last line is the bit that's applying that at the end. So again, we work it out first, and then if we need to change it, we can. So here, the character is falling. The character's falling into the floor. We check that, and then stop them moving. So now we can jump, we can fall, all seems to be good. I can't get up there, and that's partly a level design issue. So you can see how high I can jump and what I can reach. So it's now a matter of changing how high I can jump and also the level. So I've got a Y speed of -10. So if I change it to 8, you can have a look at how that affects the playability. So I can get up there, but I can't jump very high, and it's probably going to make the game way too difficult. And I'm stuck now. So the best thing to do is just change these values and get a feel for what feels right when you're playing it. So I'm going to change it to 12, -12, and now I can jump a lot higher, and I can probably get up there. Yeah, I can get up there. So now it's probably too easy. So it's finding a balance, and I'm going to have to move the level about a little bit because it's not going to work, because I'm going to bang my head on that and I'm not going to be able to get up there. So it's just a matter of changing the way the level works so it feels playable and it feels right. So I'm going to put it back to 10 for now. Test it again. So roughly seeing how high I can jump, and I'm testing this block, but I can't actually get past it. It's in the way. So to solve that, I'm going to have to change the level design a little bit. So going into the room, and then I've got these solid blocks and I need to go onto the tile level. So I'll just hide the solid blocks, go onto the tile map level, go onto the room editor part, and then I can start deleting and moving parts of this level around until I find something I like. So I think I'm just having a look at what pieces I might be able to put where and how it might work. And some of this is going to be trial and error, building your level, testing it, having a bit of an idea how it might work. I'm thinking about, will that fit in, and will I bang my head on it, and how will that work? Is that too far to jump? Them types of questions. So thinking of that all the time. So the other thing I need to do now is go back onto the solid layer and move those solid blocks and add in any that might be missing. And then it's a matter of testing again. So running, testing, changing, testing, this iterative development. So it looks like I can get up there, but it might not feel very good. It doesn't look like I can actually jump that far. Oh, I can, but it's difficult and I probably can't make that. So that level design's not going to work very well. It's not going to feel very playable. It needs to flow. So it's a matter of making it just right. So again, having difficulty with that. So It's just a matter of changing it. I think what I'm doing here is I'm just explaining that process of changing things about, trying to get things how you want them for your actual level design. Don't be afraid to scrap some ideas, try bits again, seeing if you can get things to work. Got to leave space to get out. If the key is there, I need to be able to jump out of that area, or I'll be stuck, or I won't be able to get to the key. So imagine where the player's going to go, how they're going to get there, and so on. So it's just a matter of thinking it through. Keep changing bits until you think it's right. Testing it, trying new ideas, fixing these little errors. Don't forget to go back into your solid cube and go back onto that layer. Turn it back on so you can see, and put all your solid areas back, so I can delete that one and that one. Test, 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 test. Till it feels just right. So we'll do the key at another stage. So I'm just testing how easy it is to get up there, whether it's too difficult. You might want parts of it to be difficult, but you don't want to frustrate the person playing it either. If it's meant to be an easy introduction level, you don't want it to be difficult. So it's a matter of making it hard when you want it to be hard, making it easy when you want it to be easy, and trying to get a smooth gameplay experience. So I think what I'm going to be doing is working on this offline a little bit for 5 minutes, ready for the next video, and try and get a little bit of a better level design set up. So you might want to do the same, or in the next episode you'll be able to copy the small changes I made. So I did make some changes to this just to make it more playable. So have a go at that yourself as well if you want to make it match exactly. But it is about doing your own thing.